All right, so we are live. Hello, everybody. This is the Summer Schooling with Mr. Nico podcast. Again, you could just call me Nico. This is a school, not a school. Well, I could say that it's a type of thought, that's for sure. What drives this YouTube channel in terms of the summer mindset and just exposing yourself to learning new things and getting yourself ready for whatever the next challenge is in your life while still resting and being cool, calm, and collected. And I'm going to give my guest, this guest, I got to say, and be very transparent, is special because if it weren't for this guest and if it weren't for my girlfriend sending me a text saying, you need to get to the bar and listen to this man do a cover of Pony. Uh, I got to say, like, this individual right here, I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself too. But when it came to the part of my life where I was in school becoming a teacher and just always in that space of having people tell me what to think and how to think, and if I were to have my own individual thought, it was kind of a that's cute, here recite these things. Running into this person, this man, uh, helped me feel a really healthy release, and that release was conversation, and ultimately uh, sharing. It sounds corny, but sharing myself, because a lot of people, it's one thing to have the ideas that my guest and I have, and we differ on some of those ideas, sure, but it's another thing to put those ideas out there. And in a world where a lot of people are quick to be afraid of ideas, um, that's just that is counterproductive to your own growth. And with this guest, I want people to be exposed to something that's uncomfortable in a good way, like going to a good set at a comedy club, seeing a good movie that makes you laugh and think about the things you wouldn't consider because you're not comfortable with it. He's brash, he's funny, he's talented, but most importantly, he is very well intentioned. For the 3 years that I've known him, has it been 3 years?
Yeah, probably around.
And it's good to catch up with him. So without further ado, my guest, Peter Feliciano.
Well, thank you very much, Nico. I did tear up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I did tear up a little bit. That's some shit. I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to keep the fucking. Let me get this up. I get a, yeah, man, I did. It was actually really. It was. Thank you, because I'm actually. It feels good to hear those words, not just because we have a friendship or whatever, but also because.
Yeah.
I'm at a crossroads and just moved to Austin, Texas, and
Can
got
I?
a lot of. Oh yeah, please.
I wanted to give context to this because this is interesting too. So in the 3 years I've known you, first I met you in San Francisco, Pacifica to be exact. Then after our first little podcast together, you go to New York right when the pandemic happens. And now you're in this position. So please go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I mean it's there's a shift happening, and there's always a shift happening. All you woo woo universe people, you get what I'm saying. Like there's always a shift happening, but for me at this level, everything is kind of unstable, and so to hear to hear your words that it feels like okay, I'm doing the right thing. I'm going the right direction. I'm sharing more of myself and therefore becoming more of myself. Not to go right into the public service announcement, but it's absolutely true. If you want to become more yourself, share yourself. The more I realize, remember, oh, well, should I tell people who I am? Yeah. So
Yeah.
singer songwriter, Peter Feliciano. I'm a singer songwriter. I have one album out and a bunch of other singles out on my Spotify and iTunes. Yeah. And I host a podcast called Conservatish, where I speak with musicians, comedians, political activists from all walks of life and background or whatever. And the main goal is to humanize the often dehumanized, and to have a free place to rant freely and joke freely, like really freely. And that's the main goal. Now, is it the last couple of years, is it mostly conservatives? Yes. But that's not necessarily because I don't have any liberal bones in my body. It's just because the other side is so openly championed and shared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if we're going to talk about dehumanizing or humanizing the dehumanized, it's conservatives right now. It's been conservatives for a hot minute, even when Trump was president. And, we were all bad people because we disagreed with something Joe Biden said. We were all bad people because someone black somewhere, we didn't give them our money and live a pauper's life. And so ultimately, I think with the instability, anyway, to go back to that, with the instability, it feels good to get reassurance.
So what was, I'm curious, sure, we can talk about like the specifics of the COVID response. I want to know, what was the atmosphere living in New York? Because in San Francisco, in San Francisco, it's not good in terms of how we're responding to
everything.
COVID and everything. Actually, everything. And I mean, you weren't here during the pandemic, but how was it in New York day one versus now? And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So COVID response day one in New York was pretty scary. I was on the train too. I was like, oh no. Oh, I just moved to New York and now I'm going to die. This is bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I had literally signed a lease. I had signed a lease on an apartment, or on a room in an apartment, about 2 days prior to my job getting shut down, the city getting shut down, and we were all going to die. And so I was like, and for a while I started, even though I was renting a room in a 3-bedroom apartment, both of my other roommates had left the city because they were like, we're going to die, and let me go to my family or whatever. So I was by myself in a 3-bedroom apartment for about 3 months. And by the time I moved to my more permanent place over on the Upper West Side, the city had calmed down a little bit. I had made a trek to, I had made a trek, or was about to make a trek to the Bay Area. I visited the Bay Area, so I was flying. But I remember even at that point, May of 2020-ish, I remember being, on a flight, and there was a black guy behind me who had his mask off, and I was like annoyed, because he's black. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I was annoyed because he had his mask off, and I'm like, I can feel your breath on my neck, you motherfucker. And plus I was going and visiting, old people, what I mean? My family, my friends, and so I was heightened.
We were all scared.
Yeah. And I think that's totally natural. Some of the people in the freedom movement, which needs a new rebrand, by the way, it's so corny, would disparage anybody who didn't see through it right away. Congratulations. No, they didn't, number one. And number two, but anyway, after a couple of weeks, I knew that it was being used poorly. Like, I knew that the response was overdoing it. And I started to see chinks in the armor in the hypocrisy. Like, it wasn't just, oh, this is a government overreach. It was, this is a government overreach. But if you're sitting, you can take your mask off because you're eating, and no one breathes when they eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
everyone
when you
knows
stand,
that.
Right. When you stand, you're breathing. So you gotta, so I started seeing the hypocrisy, but then I don't know where I stand even now, but I'll tell you, as far as the because you asked about the New York reaction.
Yeah.
It was not good. And it was, so part of the reason I moved to Austin is because I saw what killed San Francisco. I watched it. And that same thing that killed San Francisco killed New York, or is on the way to. And that is not a disease. It's not any symptom. The disease is like, what killed it is fear.
Mm-hmm.
And fear manifests in lots of different ways. Fear in Kentucky in 1963 caused white people to be like, let's kick these black people out of the school. Right? Because
Yes.
fear was all the. I know racism. No, the disease is racism. No. That's a symptom. That's a symptom. The disease is fear. I'm afraid of people I don't know. I'm afraid of what they're going to do. I'm afraid of what my white daughter do. I'm afraid of it. Right? Fear.
Yeah.
Guess what, boys and girls? It's the same thing that killed San Francisco. And the way it manifested in San Francisco for the last 5 years, 6 to 7 years, is everybody has to believe the same way I do. Everybody believes like me. We're all good people because we vote the right way. And anyone who steps outside of bounds or even thinks to step outside of the boundary is bad. We're good. They're bad. Just like Kentucky in 1963. White good, black bad. See, disease is different than symptom, fear. And it manifests in a lot of different ways. But, in San Francisco, it was, I always made that joke, like San Francisco is the city that sleeps, right?
Yeah.
Because people will stay up late. They'll stay up till 2 a.m., but they'll be by themselves with Thai food that they got delivered and Netflix, right? So it's the city that sleeps. New York is was very social, very social, very social.
Yeah.
But it turns out now New York, with the same disease, is dying in the same way San Francisco did. And the thing about not just we all have to believe the same things, but we all therefore have to vote the same way. And it doesn't matter how bad the turnout, it doesn't matter how bad the results are from my voting decision, I have to continue to vote that way. Because only good people vote that way and bad people vote the other way, right?
Yes.
So that same thing happened in New York. When I was telling people, I told a nice little white lady when I was leaving Upper West Side, I said, yeah, I'm moving to Austin, Texas. And she said, oh, you'll be surrounded by such bigotry. And I thought to myself, bitch, there's more black people in Austin than there are on the West Side. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Not only that, I'm a half Puerto Rican. Does she think I'm stupid? Does she think I'm too dumb to watch out for myself, that I'm making a poor decision without even imagining that she's going to go, look out for the bigotry, and I'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. Oh, white people. Are you out of your fucking mind? No, she's in a sheltered white world. She's in a sheltered liberal white world. And why? How did that cage get built? Fear. It's the same thing that killed New York, and it does tie into the reaction.
Hold on. That's me. Hold on.
I'm gonna do a dance now.
Go ahead.
You better keep that in the episode.
Absolutely. It's humid out here. It's like Austin, Texas weather for some strange reason in Pacifica. It's hot.
Bro, it's like 107 right now, and it's 11 p.m.
I can't take 71. I'm struggling over here.
I know you're a Pacifica boy. If you don't have fog, you don't know what's going on.
But continue your point.
Yeah. So let's see, what built that cage was fear. Yeah, and around the COVID thing, it was the same thing. It wasn't just fear of the disease of COVID. It was also fear of not being looked like I'm one of the good guys. Remember, we talked about it on my show a couple of times. There's McDonald's thought. You coined that beautifully. And it may be didactic, and it may be oversimplistic, but it also is a warm blanket. You know what I mean? I see it in the Airbnb that I'm staying. There's a sign out front that says, "In this house, we believe."
And I've seen it many a time. So it's amazing
that rights are human rights. Wouldn't human rights cover it? Like, what you're really meaning is let people kill babies. That's just say, in this house, we believe let people kill babies. Just be honest. Don't say just didactic. You know what I mean? If you're going to preach if you're going to condescend the right way.
I just get for me, it's just the slogans. It's lazy thinking, no matter, even if I agree with it. But it's interesting that you bring all this up, because I was going to ask you about this thought that came across to me where I was discussing, living in San Francisco, or at least the Bay Area currently in 2022, shares similar themes to 1960s Deep South or 1950s, 1940s. But what you're saying,
and not just because there's a separation of black people.
And now we're naturally separating ourselves from each other, and that's not good. But that was about hating the external, and right now it's about hating the internal of a person. So it's very common for me to walk around and just see disdain for the unvaccinated, disdain for anyone who is, still respectful of COVID, but not to the degree that well, I'm thinking of an individual business owner where it's like, you will come to our place, show proof of vaccination, and this place in particular, you have to show proof of a designated driver too for our events. And it's like, how righteous do you have to be to put that out into the world and still have a clientele?
Are they? Is the owner white?
Yeah. And see, and I gotta be honest. This is what to the audience when I said that I love conversations with Peter because he'll say things that make you uncomfortable. And sometimes when he says things like it's mostly white, liberal, blah, 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 I'm like, for me, it's people who have taken. For me, it is people who have taken their politics as an identity first. Absolutely. I don't like it when and like you said with the conservative, it's a little bit of both. I don't like it when it shows in any set of any part of the political aisle. If you are identifying or at least putting forth into the world your identity politics first before you've cultivated a self, that's dangerous to me. That's very dangerous. So that being said, yes, that was a white woman. Yeah. Gay white woman.
Can I elaborate a little bit on why I said that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So obviously, because I rant enough about it on the show, but and don't get me wrong, everybody, I'm half white too. Okay, so this is it's not full on racism.
Yeah.
But I personally believe we have to stop the bleeding. And to me, from my perspective, not just on the internet, but everywhere I go, my perspective is the people who need to change are white liberals. Now, does that mean that black liberals aren't quote unquote part of the problem? No. In fact, there are a lot of black liberals and white liberals even who are very reasonable people, right? Mm-hmm. But if you go around, and I tweeted this, wokeness is white people shit. I say it, blatantly. I see it brashly, like you said. But again, like he said, at the base is coming from a place of love. I swear to God, I'm coming from a place of love.
Yeah.
Who is killing art? Right? Ask any stand-up comic. Okay, white women. Let's even be are 30% of the population of the country. Around 30%, right? Because white people are like 60, 65. And so about half of that, okay, 30-ish. They're 99% of people who take umbrage with jokes. 99.
Where's that from? Where'd you get that stat from?
I'm saying every single comic, whether they're white, black, gay, straight, doesn't matter. Ask all of them. I've heard it on countless podcasts. I've listened to Your Mom's House. I've listened to Jim and Sam. I've listened to Colin Quinn. I've listened to Patrice O'Neill. I've listened to anybody who takes, that's not okay. You shouldn't. It's almost always a white woman. Dang. Now, do I like white women? Yes. In fact, I'm dating a white liberal woman right now.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. But so I'm like AOC, who also says white people are the devil, but also dates white people. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you're in Texas now, so yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason. Anyway, one tangent at a time, Pete. So again, who's choking comedy? Who's choking art? Who's choking conversation, right? It may be, there are some black people who do that, absolutely, who censor it. Yeah, okay. But it's usually a black intern who's working for a white liberal. It's usually a black liberal with a blue check mark, right? Or black girl who's in college, right? But it's anybody, any amateur ass. It's like professional Latinxes, professional, blacks and amateur whites. It's like across the board anywhere. I'm telling you right now. The white girl I'm seeing said, I don't really like it when you say the N word. It makes me uncomfortable. Guess what, boys and girls? Nico was actually on my show and thanked me for using the N word rather than saying the phrase the N word. So who should I listen to? Is it the black guy or is it the white woman? Like, you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying, who's trying to stop my voice? Who's trying to take my money? Who's trying to be punitive, disdainful, like you said? I'm sorry. My experience is it's white people.
So, by the
It's
way, huh?
It's white liberals. I needed to clarify.
I was gonna say, so audience, when he said the N word, he meant nigger, and I say that I'm half black, half Filipino, and I believe in words being words, and yes, I find some words more hurtful than others, but I will never be the person to say we need to eradicate that word from existence. Yeah. In fact, one of my I had a teaching moment. Now that I'm not teaching anymore, I can talk about this stuff. But I had one of my students. She had been working like with me I was a Playworks instructor, and I'd run games for the kids outside. And this one kid, through my time knowing her in elementary school, she was very mature in terms of her views on society. She's still a kid, like you don't, it's not fully fleshed out, but there's a motivation to explore that curiosity. And I ran into her in middle school as a 7th grader, and I was subbing for her class, and she came up to me, and I was just catching up with her and saying, this is what I've been up to. How's middle school? And she's like, well, some of these kids are a little racist. And I'm like, why? What do you mean? And she's like, well, one of the white girls called me the N word. And then I'm like, well, nigger? And then she's like, and I'm like, no. I mean, look, it's a terrible word, but you cannot allow that word to debilitate you upon hearing it. You can have a reaction to it, but to debilitate you, like and I say this now to everyone who's heard that word, it's awful and it's terrible, and I wish people would never say it, but I also live in the real world, so it's going to happen. So why take one word, one moment of your life, your beautiful life, hopefully your beautiful life, and use it to destroy everything you know about you? Is your self-worth built as a house of cards? Right. So yeah, again, you keep bringing it back. The discomfort is where you can really get the most nuggets. But I totally agree. I was watching Louis C.K.'s bit where he talks about that word, and he talks about that word, and every time he said it, my girlfriend would kind of tense up, and I'm just like, I find it funny, honestly. I'm like, why are you tripping? Like, I don't know why that is.
Well, I think I do. I
ahead.
do. I could be wrong, but I'm Peter Feliciano, so I rarely am.
Yeah, there you go.
But I think I do. It's because they've been told to be. They've been told to be uncomfortable with it, right? It's the same thing with, like, so there was that poem. Larry Elder. Have you told this story on the show?
Probably. This is the first. We talked about this on our first podcast on your show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Larry Elder has that wonderful. He's talking, and I know he's the blank face of white supremacy, but anyway, Larry Elder was telling the story about in school. His teacher tells him, he's like probably in high school, whatever, maybe middle school, and his teacher tells this poem, about while riding through old Baltimore, so small and full of glee. It's about this little kid, this little black boy who's like in this, riding through Baltimore. He's like small and he's having a good time, blah, blah, blah. And then, and then a little white kid sticks his tongue out and calls him a nigger, right? And then he's like, I was in Baltimore from May until December. From all of my trip, that's all that I remember, right? And he tells us, and Larry Elder's mad. He's like, man, that little kid is going to be because the teacher told him to interpret it that way. The teacher, probably a white motherfucker, told with good intentions and crusty, crunchy granola for breakfast, told that black man to feel that, feel this, feel what I want you to feel, right? So he goes home and Larry's mad and he tells the story, blah, blah, blah. And this kid was having a good time. And the mean old white man, little white boy called him a nigger and sticked out his tongue. And that's all he remembers from his trip to Baltimore. And his black ass mom, okay, who was living in South Central in the 60s, bro. Bad, okay?
Yes.
She turns to him and says, what a waste of a good vacation. So why, like, you know what I'm saying? Context matters. And importance is where we put it, right? Power is where we put it.
Yeah.
That dumb Game of Thrones thing, but like power is where you believe it, right? So that's why some people were like, oh my God, the government said to kill yourself because of COVID. I'm going to get a shotgun now. And some people were like, fuck a mask. I'm not doing nothing, because the power is where we put it, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, I think the reason why those people are upset is because, number one, they've been told to, and that's been justified by seemingly good ideas. Reparations is another seemingly good idea, and it's brought up beautifully by Thomas Sowell and by Larry Elder as well, and a bunch of other black people. How much of the what was it? I had Ada different voice X. She's Ada Akpala. Anyway, find her. She's wonderful. She's on YouTube. She's on Instagram. And she told that she's like, okay, for reparations, how much are the Africans going to pay? It's like, whoa, what? Yeah, because you motherfuckers you bought and sold African, like, and wonderful. I was watching something on YouTube, and it wasn't a political thing, but apparently America's responsible for 5% of the African slave trade. 5.
Yes.
Right? Of the Atlantic slave trade. They definitely bred.
Oh, they indulged. They were humans.
But as far as bringing Africans to America, was only responsible for 5. And Brazil was more than that.
Yeah, Brazil was having a lot of fun. Africa was having a lot of fun. And for the listeners or the viewers of this, the book I would recommend that I'm pretty sure you're talking about, but if you want to find an extensive essay on slavery and the history of slavery across the world, you should read Black Rednecks and White Liberals by Thomas Sowell. Just one of the chapters just focuses on this interpretation of slavery that we have in America, and it's pretty good. I'd be interested to talk to you, speaking of power and that word. I cringe when I look back on myself in high school because I was that guy. I was that guy who walked around wearing a shirt that said "abolish the N Word." I was like the only black person that didn't like saying the word nigga,
right?
Because it just sounded so silly to me. And when I heard the argument for it, because I'd say don't call me nigga, and black people be like, nigga what? And I just be like, just don't call me. And for me, it was always like, you keep saying we took power from the word, but now even as an adult, I'm like, okay, that's the claim. The argument is that you took power from the word, but for some reason, the Latinos can say the word sometimes, depending on how close a friend they are to you. Sometimes Asians can say it to you here and there. Oh, and the white friend, when you're in close quarters and no one else is around and you've known them for years, can say it too. Also, even on the biggest stage, when Kendrick Lamar had the woman come onto the stage and recite the lyrics that he wrote that made him millions, and I love him. That's fine, but a song that made him as an individual millions, he has to stop because this woman's reciting the lyrics. So is it okay for her to say it in the crowd, but not on stage, isolated? So that to me is not power. I'm curious on what your view on the word nigga is.
Well, context matters more than everything. Context matters more than everything. Nigger can be an absolutely hateful word if someone is calling someone a nigger to hurt their feelings, right? Nigger can be a wonderful word. Nigger, it doesn't matter. Sometimes, I mean, on my show, I say it mostly about white liberals. Like when I'm ranting about white liberals, nigga, that fucking, you know, I go off. It's very rarely to black people, right? But as far as my feelings on it, what do you like?
I don't know. Like okay, your feeling on the idea that we've taken power away from nigger by flipping it to nigga. It's like the argument for the LGBTQ saying we took power to the word queer.
Right. Well, I think it's still giving your power away. Now, this may be a process in the actual freedom. Yeah. But I still think it feels insecure to say we took the power back. It's like either you have power or you don't, nigga. Like either you're gonna like own it or don't. But don't selectively do it, because then you're a child, like you're an intellectual child, right?
Yeah.
So not only have I had that experience where you were talking about, but I've said it around other people. I've said this and that. And I feel, so here's an example. When I make jokes with my fans all the time and my followers that I'm bald, right? Yeah. And it's become a thing where like, let my people go, like, I make fun of going bald. So whatever. Here's I'll break the fourth wall a little bit. I'm not insecure about being bald. I'm just not. I like my head. Girls like rubbing it. You know what I mean? Like it's good. It's all good. I like being bald, right? And I have a good shaped head and blah, blah, blah. But if someone made fun of me for being fat, that hurts my feelings, right? When I'm feeling insecure about my body, right? I've gone up and down. Just to, give a little backstory. I once was 315 pounds. Right. I've been up and down and all over the place. I'm in a position now where I feel in a place of neutrality around food, but I struggled with diets for years, and I would yo-yo and gain weight, and I fucking hated myself, and I ate accordingly. Okay. It wasn't the chicken or the egg. They were both at the same fucking time. I didn't like myself. I ate. I didn't like myself. I ate. I didn't like myself. I ate. So when someone makes fun of that, because it hits an Achilles heel, right? That hurts me more, right? Have I felt offended when people have said that, not even intentionally, right? Yeah. Yes. Would I be a mature person to say, don't call me fat, or don't say fat about that person, or don't even call yourself fat? Would I be a mature person? No, I would not. Right? Yeah. And just because I have brown skin, or right now I have I'm hoping Austin makes me a little browner, but just because you have black skin or somebody else black skin doesn't mean we should change the definition of what maturity is. That's insulting. That's demeaning, and that doesn't set them up for success. That sets them up for failure. Yeah. So if we teach black boys and girls to care about context, that's what matters, right? Just like calling someone and even in anger, someone calling someone a nigger is not even necessarily racism. What do I mean by that? Well, gee golly, if I get into a car wreck with somebody and somebody cut me off, and now I'm mad at, and I get out of the car and we're screaming at each other, and we're back, it's getting heated and we're about to fight. Am I going to call him, you poop face poop? Poop. I don't like your jerk poop. No, I'm going to take the big guns out word-wise, and I'm going to try to hurt his feelings. Is it mature? No, but I'm going to try to hurt his feelings. And so when two dudes are fighting, I remember that there was that Jonah Hill situation where
I don't know about this.
The Jonah Hill situation must have been like 7-8 years ago, where some paparazzi's like all up in his face, asking him offensive shit, following him, and Jonah Hill called the guy a faggot, and Jonah Hill had to apologize. The paparazzi's like, he's what? Like, what? He was trying to hurt his feelings. Did he actually hate gay people? No. Does that make sense? Yeah. So context is what matters here. And so as far as the original, the question, I'm sorry if I went off on a rant.
No, it's okay.
But as far as the question, I just feel like if we're going to get to the other side of it, we're going to need to wake up, and we're going to need to, I don't think taking power back is we get to say it, you don't get to, or we're going to add up. You know what I'm saying? It's all about, it's a complicated issue. And I say it around my show. I say it around my friends. But I don't say it around, I think code switching, I was just talking with someone else about it. Code switching is a mature thing to do. I don't say cunt around my grandma. Right?
Grandma.
Right. But that doesn't mean I morally disagree with saying cunt. I just don't want to hurt her feelings. And mostly, really, it's just I don't know how she'll react. Right?
Yeah.
So
you don't even know, would you even know if she used it in her personal life?
No. Right.
You have no certainty.
No idea. She's a fucking Puerto Rican. She probably say it all the time. But like, but the same thing goes. I don't say nigger around black people I don't know, not because I don't want to hurt their feelings. No, it's because I don't know if they're an immature douchebag. Yeah, because black people can be just as immature just as frequently as whites. They're humans. They're humans.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I always just wondered about just the excuse making we create for each other that allows us to stay in our insecurities even longer. I mean, can you imagine you're talking about being a 300 pounds? How would you feel if you were 300 pounds in the current climate around fat anti-shaming, I guess is the best way that's going on with like I'm seeing this PR movement to accept being forget it. I'm gonna say it, being overweight.
Yeah.
And when people say that we shouldn't promote that as the problem is to promote that as health. It doesn't mean you shame that person for being overweight, but you can't also say this is something we shall hold up in regard of beauty.
Right. Yeah, no, I see it as a similar thing that a lot of liberals are doing these days. I don't want to make the whole show about it, but you did have Peter Feliciano on your show, so it happens.
Yeah, I know what I'm bringing in here. It's all good.
But sometimes we want to keep the doors wide enough open for this that we kick it, that we take the door completely off, right? Yeah. So like for some people, they're like, well, what about abortion in cases of rape? Okay, but you don't really want to only make it about rape. You don't want abortion open only for people who have been raped. You're just saying that in order to kick your foot in the door so that you can swing it all the way out to 9 months.
Get all this other stuff that you wanted. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's
the same thing with fat. It's like, okay, I don't want anyone, listen, even
how would you react to that stuff? I was saying, like, how would you react to that stuff?
I was 315 pounds right before I started the podcast, a little bit before I started the podcast in 2018, right? And I had hated myself on and off for years. I remember wanting to kill myself over being fat, right? Mm. But I wasn't the type of person that everybody should change their behavior or their words, which is behavior, to fit me. That's not nice. That's not nice on me, on my part. That wouldn't be nice. Right.
Yeah.
And that same thing goes. I'm not saying that because we shouldn't anti-fat shame. Right. Does that mean that people should hate themselves? Fucks no.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
But again, with the door, there is a middle ground. There is a middle ground where you can learn how to, it's the same reason Pride was started. Pride was started so that people who were shameful could have a place to go, no, fuck shame so much. I'm prideful. I'm prideful that I am the way I am. It was a way to kick it so wide open, and God bless them. I'm happy for Pride. But now it's turned into something else. But anyway, that's what that was. So that's what anti-fat shaming is no, you know what? I'm healthy. Like, no, that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Dang, man. There's another thing I wanted to ask you about. So you were 300 pounds. If I remember correctly from one of our interviews, you were also homeless at some point?
Yeah. Well,
only homeless for homeless for a day is more than the I'd say.
When I slept in my car for a week or two in 2008, I or 2009, I had broke up with a girl, and I had been living off of her. I was 21 years old, 22 years old. I didn't know no better. And so I was sleeping in my car in Portland, Oregon, for about a week. Now, before that, before I got sober back in when I was 15, I would hang out with homeless people all day. Because
Before you got sober, so you didn't do it sober. Did you do it sober?
What do you mean?
Hang out with homeless people.
Hang out with homeless people? No. I mean, sometimes at certain meetings I go to, there are some homeless people, but no, I hung out with homeless people when I was about 14, 15 years old. Yeah. And I would go, they taught me how to panhandle. They taught me how to go in the dumpster behind Safeway and I remember one time we got lobster legs, right? They taught me how to, they did the shoulder tap thing where they would buy me booze and things like that. Get me maybe drugs, maybe once or twice. But I was looking for my type of people, and those fit my stilo more than kids at school. I never fit really well with kids at school, and I also really liked alcohol and drugs. So, I would hang out with those people.
What type of student were you? I was thinking of asking this to all guests at some point in the podcast, because I wanted to make a point that what we as teachers and educators are sort of trained to look for, and the parameters we're made to look for, they're important. Sure, I would want every child to know how to read, write, and arithmetic,
right?
But at the end of the day, it's kind of a crapshoot on what they're going to become ultimately.
Or how they're going to learn.
Or how they're going to learn, because there are kids in my class, and I know there are a lot of teachers out there who have kids in their class that are awesome. They show talents in other regards. You get along with them, but when it comes time to just doing the basic assignments, they can't do it. Right. And you work with them and you give them all the tools. And I hate how teachers are like, no, you need to dedicate all your time to making it work for this kid. It's out of your control. Like, I have kids that absolutely loved my class, loved me as a teacher, had fun all the time, but it just wouldn't click for them academically in some subjects. And I'm curious, I look at those kids, and I know a lot of teachers will look at those kids and say to themselves, they're going to be something good outside of school. Outside of school and outside of the normal parameters that we are trained to look for and value in society, in terms of you made a lot of money,
right?
They're going to be fulfilled in other ways. So I'm curious, what was your background as a student?
So my background as a student, can I get a drink real quick? I'm thirsty.
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead. I'm taking a sip too.
I got it out of LaCroix, but I can't remember where the. So I was the type of student who, when I was young, I liked the teachers, or I liked certain teachers. There was one in 5th grade named Mr. Burnham. He had an iguana, and he was funny. And I remember liking people who are funny, you know what I mean? And I connected with those guys. And I remember being maybe, I could work in teams. I was smart. But I remember teachers telling me I had a lot of potential, but wasn't living up to it, because when it came to tests or things like that, I just wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. I think I can't really remember.
I can't blame any kid.
Yeah, a lot of my young life, I was more interested in in talking with people and things like that. And I was, I had 3 brothers, so there's 4 boys in the house. We were fucking nuts. We were nuts. And but I had roughly B's and A's most of my up until maybe 7th grade. And then I got introduced to drugs and alcohol, and I was like, oh, I would rather do that. And I became kind of rebellious. I remember one time after maybe 5th or 6th grade, we burned our school books after the school year, like behind.
I've been tempted to do that as an adult.
Yeah,
Some of the
right.
curriculum
We
books
went
I've been given.
over by the train tracks and burned them. We were just, you know. And I started stealing, and I was a bad little kid.
Yeah.
Well, not bad, but you know what I'm saying. Now I got sober, and for years I told myself that I was street smart, people smart, but I wasn't book smart. I told myself that, right? And at the beginning of the pandemic, when we were all going to die, and it was like, I moved to New York in order to perform music and do my podcast with comedy people, and like now I can't do that. Maybe I'll go to school. So I started going to school for audio production. And it turns out that was a fucking lie. Turns out I am smart.
Oh,
I've been maintaining a 3.98 GPA. So there you go.
Yes.
So it turns out I am smart. Now, that didn't happen until I had done a bunch of other healing work and working on myself and believing in myself. By the way, and I know this is part of the reason why I'm happy for you. I would say proud of you, but I'm not above you. I'm just happy for you, because part of my growth to becoming more believing in myself was starting a show, was having a place where I could rant freely, having a place where I could tell stories, hear stories, and just explore. Because the more people knew about it, the less hiding I had to do. Yeah. There's only like one or two things that are like I keep for like my deep friends and like my mentors and stuff. Everything else, I've said it all on my show. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm talking like weird secrets and shit. Like it's all conservative is a mishmash,
Yeah.
So that's helped me realize like, okay, there is ground underneath me, and I'm okay, and I am good at talking, and I am good at listening, and I am good at sharing, and it's safe for me to do so. What else is safe for me to do so? Maybe I'll stick my head over there, stick my foot over there. What's the temperature of the water over here? And so I do believe, starting a show helped me become more myself. And I think that's what's going to happen with you, whether it lasts 50 years or 58 seconds, whatever, it's still you doing something for you in a place that you believe in, saying things that you believe, telling stories that you believe, having people on that you want to share with. This is all good. Nothing bad will happen out of it, and I'm proud.
I appreciate that, man. I really do. This is huge for me because it's like I got to a point when just working in schools, I just kind of felt like the asshole. Like if we were doing equity circles and we had a professional developments where the moderator and the leader would say to us, "Okay, everyone, let's draw equity circles and this and is what's in the center and this is," and it was just kind of, I would say things that would answer their question, but also kind of give them like a fuck you, I know what you're really trying to get to.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the exact I'm going to articulate a thoughtful response in how this is wrong to even ask to us. And I've been told straight up, you know what, Nico, you need to humble yourself. You know what, you need to do this. Like the amount of times through this journey, I've been told straight up, Nico, you're not that good a teacher, or you what you're saying, you need to humble yourself. And I love the last school that I worked at. I love the principal that I worked for. The parents, the majority of them were great, but even at that place, I couldn't escape just the stifling of imagination, whether it came out in the kids or the teachers. And part of this, the reason I'm making this podcast and this channel is because there are quiet sufferers out there in those spaces. And the stat that blew my mind as I'm working on this book is that since 2020, there have been 300,000 teachers and educators that have left the field. I'm now one of that stat. Now, my hope is that with conversations and whatever I choose to do moving forward is to kind of provide context as to why that might be happening, and not being able to think for yourself in a place that prides itself for teaching critical thought, that's a heartbreaker for me. And
You were in a high school?
no, I was in an elementary school. I was at a great school for I had
Was
fourth
it
and fifth grade. Sorry, go ahead.
no, was it just the woke stuff, or was that a manifestation of the same disease?
Like, so the first school I taught at, that shit was like, I don't think you can escape it in schools today. Unfortunately, the diversity, equity, inclusion kind of ideology. I've had this year specifically, like I've had people come from the district to talk to me about how I teach social studies and straight up tell me, Nico, we're trying to change the social paradigm with this material. And they're looking at me kind of in this kind of tone of, I see your skin color. You understand this shit, huh? White man destroying everything out here. Let's get him back. And I'm just like, one, I want to go home. I'm tired. Like, and two, how neurotic of you to think that you are going to change social paradigm. I don't go into any of my lessons trying to think that I am the end all, the alpha and omega for these kids' trajectory in their lives. I want to give them the best service I can in the 180 days I have with them, but I got 6 hours with them. You know, who has the other 18? The world. Like, you I hope you had good teachers in that time you were 14. But your teachers, and this is a point again in the channel of like, the teachers are going to come from all avenues of your life. They're not just in the classroom. And I don't know, I'm sure the homeless people taught you something good, like something that you could take away with you. I like, there's something, maybe 2% of what they taught you, but that's something. I don't know, man. I really thank you for this conversation. I think the last question I want to ask you, though, before we go, is everyone, he'll give himself another promotion at the end. Peter makes great music. If you go to his YouTube channel, you will find his interviews, but you will also find his songs and covers that he does. My personal favorite is Manic Monday. My question to you is, we talk about this being a form of expression. What is something that music allows you to express that podcasting can't, and vice versa? Because you can't make a song straight up being like nigger and white liberals. It's not going to be good.
I can see myself doing it. No. So a couple of things. I definitely, that's an interesting question. I definitely know that the podcast, I started it because I didn't want to be relegated to 2 verses and a chorus and maybe a bridge with my ideas on a certain topic. Yes, it's fun to figure out a rhyme. Yes, it's fun to sing. Yes, it's fun to do that stuff. But in order to let myself completely flower, or whatever you want to call it, I needed to find my own voice in my own way. So the podcast allows me to just, say because this is the thing too. That's why we all understand intrinsically. We all understand context. We all understand that, and it manifests in this ways. When your favorite guy, your favorite politician says something, and people on the other side are going, and you're like, whatever, bro. I know what he meant. You didn't get what he meant. That's the same thing that happens on the other side. Dumb motherfucker. Context. We all intrinsically get it. We can override it when we choose to be an immature douche. So I wanted to be because it sometimes takes me 5 minutes, 10 minutes to get to the point of not to get to the point, but to get to the meat and to really say and put a good period right on what I just said. You know what I mean? Or to bring it back. And what about this? You just said this 5 minutes. Conversation is important. And so I didn't want to be relegated to a little bit.
Yeah.
Music gives me a different thing. Similar in some ways, in that even when I'm talking on a podcast, I can feel when I'm in the moment, when I'm with myself, when I'm not in a crazy place or I haven't eaten or whatever. I can feel in my more healthier places, I can feel myself being heard. I can feel myself getting energy back. Okay. I know this might sound strange, but you've been in front of large groups in the teach. You know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I can feel that back. And I know that I'm giving out and they're giving me back and we're exchanging energy with each other.
Yeah.
But on stage, it's completely different. And in music, it's completely different. Because in music, I can be any character ever, right? Even with music or South Park or things like that, you can be a movie, a TV. You can step into someone else's skin, tell a story, whether it be a story about a hard thing that happened or a story about a weird dumb Tuesday. You can tell a story and it may ring true for you, or maybe elements of it. One of my most popular songs is Simple Girl. Simple Girl is about a Mexican prostitute in the 1800s. Did I start out that song in order to tell a story or make a message happen? No.
Roxanne.
Right. No, I came up with the dun, 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 dun. I came up with the flowing, and it felt good as a flamenco song. And so I wanted to tell a story, and what story would fit here. And this may not be a true story for everybody, but this right here, it's I think what's true for this lady, and it's sung from the perspective of her. Yeah. And I've had women many times tell me, yeah, I like that song. That's my favorite song. And then I've had other women be like, yeah, I like that song, but it kind of annoyed me because it's like, you shouldn't be talking. You're a man. You don't understand feminist.
Yeah.
Because again, they're taking context and they're overriding their context because of their fucking ego.
Yeah.
Because of ego. I'm right, and you're a man, and Roe v. Wade. Like, okay, but you understand. You can't fuck it. What's the perfect? Someone else said it. Might have been Jerry Seinfeld or some comedian said. He said he was at a show and he came back, and or it might have been Brian Regan, and he said, and then the reviews came out and they said, excuse, it wasn't very funny, and he's like, yeah, but the audience has already spoken. We all know what just happened. They all laughed. So even if you didn't think it was funny, all these motherfuckers did. Yeah. So we all know what happened. Same thing happens in music. You can quietly, I don't really like that, but people are still fucking dancing. You're still moving your little head. You're still feeling a wave of emotion. And that exchange of energy happens in a different way on stage. It happens in a different way when I can meticulously arrange the violins to sound like this, and when it all came from me, and I'm transferring emotion, whether you like it or not, I'm transferring emotion. And when people are, I think that's really what art is the transfer of emotion. When audiences, just like you're experiencing right now, when you're on this show, when someone is willing to listen to ride the wave that Nico puts out, right? When someone is like, I'm down to ride this wave. It may go ups. There may be twists and turns. There may be times I disagree, and sometimes I'm cheering at my dashboard. They're willing to take the ride with you, and that's a magical thing. And it should never. I mean, that's so important to my soul. So important.
It's something that we respond to with reverence. It is something we honor to the best of our ability, and that's why we take the time to create these things for you. So. Hopefully we created a really good podcast. I had a great time. Thank you for doing this. This is great.
I'm not blowing smoke. This is an honor, Nico. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it, and I already have stuff that I want to talk to you about in the future too. So an hour is just fine. Do you have anything that you want to plug before we go?
You can find my podcast Conservatish on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. And you can find my music on Spotify and iTunes, and a little bit on YouTube. And now that I'm in Austin, I'm gonna be getting a little band together and start doing some performing. And I'm also gonna be producing other people's music, so keep an eye out. There's gonna be a lot more music in the Peter Feliciano world, and because I've been with the pandemic, it's been very separate, and I've been doing mostly podcast. So now I'm gonna be doing a lot more of both and a lot more music. So if you don't like anything I say and you just like my music, fine. If you just like my podcast and you don't like my music, fine. But, if you just like my memes, fine. I'm on Instagram at Peter_Feliciano, Feliciano, and you can support my podcast and music at patreon.com/conservatish or buy merch. I have my favorite one is most popular one is called, it says, "It's okay if we disagree on politics," right across the street. It's okay if we disagree on politics. So you can buy that at peterfeliciano.com.
Nice. And I'll be sure to put those links in the description for this video. Well, thank you for joining the show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the conversation. And until next time, take care.